So no, we're not out of the woods. I think it's a mistake, and looking back in history, unless this is very different, unless the parallels to this and that smarter, Ken Rogoff and others have written about, unless this is different, and unless Bernanke and company are truly geniuses, I don't think we're out of the woods. I think we're just in the beginnings of this longer resetting period. And it may look up one day, it may look down one day, up one day, it may look down the next day. But until we figure out a new way to build a new kind of way of life and way of working, which creates the demand for new industries, doesn't try to stoke the fire back under the old housing. I mean, this is what I say is the huge mistake. Bail out the housing market, bail out the banks, bail out the auto companies, try to bring back, because we don't want to feel the pain, try to bring back the economy of the past. It simply can't work. What we need to do is create a new way of living and working that can actually generate demand and cause the growth of new industries. And I do think that's a much longer-term process.
But it wasn't an industrial crisis, was it, Rich? It was a financial crisis, which, and the root of it was basically too much debt, which was far too cheap, and and you had huge amounts of liquidity coming in from China. We know this story pretty well at this point. So the question is, I mean, you were saying that there are various areas of the United States which have been completely devastated by the crisis, and I was thinking to myself, well, what are they? I mean, the Rust Belt was pretty devastated even before the crisis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Sun Belt. And the Sun Belt cities of sand built on just real estate. They're the places that have been devastated, and they were heading towards devastation. So it really means one has to rethink the way you want to grow.
Well, and now that everyone is concentrating on our beloved pigs, people are spending a lot more time. We've dealt with the enormous amounts of debt in the world of mortgages, which has proved to be particularly devastating, especially in the Sun Belt, but across the world, really. And now people are looking to sovereign debt as well, and municipal debt. That's the next sort of obvious shoe to drop, and my good friend Nouriel Roubini will talk at great length about that. But again, I'm looking at these big financial issues, and what I'm having difficulty doing is trying to take big financial issues about, what are we going to do with these trillions of dollars of Italian and Spanish and Irish and UK and even US debt, which cause a lot of trouble to people with money because it's all ultimately invested in this stuff at some point. And I'm trying to see the connection between that and we have to build high-speed railways and move back to the cities.
So the crisis of leverage was a crisis of an economy that couldn't grow, that had lost its ability to create demand for new industries, that had lost its ability to develop consumption that would stimulate the demand for new goods and services. It was an economy that was broken. And the way we tried to fix it or paper it over was by injecting huge amounts of debt and leverage into the system. That's about as much as I know. I'm not a financial economist.
So basically what happens is you were saying that you get lots of innovation in the 19th century, in the 1930s, and with that innovation comes lots of natural growth. When you have lots of natural growth, you don't need leverage in order to get nice returns. When growth rates fall and things become, and economies mature, then the only way that the people can continue to see their assets grow is by levering them up, and then the more leverage you have, the more of a problem you have. And so it seems to me that your prescription is, well, hey, what we should do is delever and go back to being really innovative and have lots of natural growth again, which is great in theory, but has it ever actually happened? Have we ever had a sort of mature economy suddenly have lots of incredibly sort of growth-creating innovation?
Sure. The United States and North America after the 1930s. If we can't do that, we stay in. I mean, the other alternative explanation for crisis, which this is so funny to talk about history, was the explanation that Alvin Hansen gave in the Great Depression. Alvin Hansen was called the American Keynes. He was President Roosevelt's advisor. And he said that advanced economies had exhausted their factors of production. That finance was the thing that was moving capital around and increasing the growth of the economy fictitiously, and now government had to play that role. If not, you would have secular stagnation. The U.S. economy and the world economy would stagnate forever. That was until we got this new wave of innovation, Schumpeterian innovation, and we built collectively a new way of organizing our society. What did we have to do to make that happen? We had to make banks relatively, Tom Philippon and others have written much, we had to make banks relatively less important. We had to create a new system of financial regulation, a new system of housing finance, which made mortgages both affordable and regulated them before they got back out of hand as all of that stuff came tumbling down. And we had to build a real economy and a real geography that stimulated the growth of those industries. So we built highways and infrastructure, and we subsidized some of that, creating the post-war boom. So it was very much constructed. And what the book is arguing for, empathetically and sympathetically, is we have to put our eyes back on the real economy, not in an abstract way. And you can see how important this is, because this is where at least part of the conversation has to head. Not in an abstract way about stimulating the biotech industry or putting more money in the software industry. We have to build a real geography, a real physical way of living that can speed up the growth of those industries. And here's what the book says. It quotes this ridiculous quote that Herbert Hoover never said, right? But a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. And that quote becomes emblematic of the fact that in order to grow an industrial economy, we had to massively revolutionize agriculture. We had to make food cheap. We had to get people off the farms. We had to increase the efficiency of agriculture. And it went from about 50% of all Americans and Canadians, or even more, working in agriculture, down to about 5%, and now it's down to less than 1%. And agriculture as a percent of household budget shrank, food and clothing shrank from about 50% down to 10, 15%, more or less. The figures are in the book. Housing, energy, and transport, our homes, our cars, and gasoline now consume on average more than half of household expenditures in the US and Canada, and for many people 75% or more. In order to reset the economy, what the book is saying, we have to also not only create new industries, we have to rapidly increase efficiency and reduce the cost of housing, energy, and cars, housing, energy, and transport, and that will be key to resetting our economy.
So we need like a Norman Borlaug for houses. We need someone who can work out how to make our houses cost much less than they ever used to.
Absolutely. And one of the things the book, and you and I have talked a lot about, that one of the things that's going to come back on the table, that in fact is coming back on the table in the United States, that's been less coming back on the table here, every great reset has been associated with the rise of a new way of housing people. A whole new, what you call in urban affairs, housing tenure system. The creation of mass owner-occupied single-family homes after the Great Depression and World War II. We have to put that back on the table. And one of the things that you know, because your guys helped win a free book over at your website, one of the things that we're going to have to think long and hard about is moving, to some degree, backing off home ownership and moving more towards rental. Rental creates much more affordability. And actually, in the analysis we've done subsequent to publishing the book, we find that metropolitan areas and cities, Canada has about 70% owner occupancy. The U.S. is declining. It's now about 67% single-family home ownership. The metropolitan areas and cities, which are about 50 to 55% owners, 50 to 45% renters, have more robust economies, higher rates of innovation, higher rates of skill, higher rates of growth, higher incomes and wages, and are more flexible in responding to economic shifts. So one way to do that, we talk to people every day who not only tell us, I got rid of my giant house, and oh my God, my life's better, and I walk around, and I see my neighbors. Yeah, they tell us that. But the other thing they tell us is they have a lot more disposable income to spend on other stuff that they were dying to do.